Everyone has that friend. The one who is so much into their fandom that every word that comes out of their mouth relates back to that which they obsess over. Well, guess what? I am that friend. And I'm about to squeal like a Gamorean guard because it's time to prove to you that 2009's Fanboys is not that bad. Welcome one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. And I am as giddy as a Gamorean guard because it is time to talk about 2009's Fanboys. And here to join me, because it is the way, is my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm great, but I am convinced I'm that friend you were talking about in the opener.
No, we're not talking about a Harry Potter movie. We're talking about a movie that relates to Star Wars.
I have my Princess Leia bun headband.
Okay.
I have my bad Mama Jedi lightsaber.
Oh, yeah.
I am set.
You are Star Wars'd out now. It was a different story when you and I got together.
It did take a few years and a couple of beers.
Yeah, a few years and a couple of beers. I kind of like that. And, okay, so let me explain here. So when we got together, I am a full-on, like, hardcore Star Wars card-carrying Jedi here.
This makes me laugh because remember on our wedding application for a license and you wanted to claim your religion as Jedi. And I'm like, don't you dare.
She stopped me from making it official of being a Jedi on paper, legally.
Because I wanted to be able to walk down the aisle without, any hiccups along the way.
See, I don't need that kind of negativity.
Application declined.
Oi, it's not like we tried to name our son Jar Jar.
No, but Han would have been a good name.
It would have. It would have. This is going to be a very, very, very geeky episode. So if you like Star Wars, you're going to find yourself in, fun, familiar territory. If you don't like Star Wars, listen to it anyways, because we're going to have a bunch of laughs. But before we talk about 2009's Fanboys, it is time to take this comedy film and trailerize it.
Never in the history of man has anyone tried so hard, traveled so long, and went through so much adversity just to see Jar Jar Binks. But this fearless foursome will not be stopped, will not be deterred, and will not pass up any opportunity to rip on Star Trek. Enter Fanboys, a movie that looks fondly back at a time before midi-chlorians, before sand got everywhere, and before Anakin went full Frankenvader, yet still released before a time when Rey proclaimed herself to be a Skywalker. Seriously, those kids had no idea how good they had it. Also, why didn't Vice Admiral Holdo just tell Poe what the plan was all along and avoid an attempted mutiny? And seriously, what's with the porgs? I get you want to sell toys, but they make Ewoks look revolutionary. And come on. Can we just move past the Skywalker storyline? There are more people in the universe than the spawn of a whiny Charbabian.
Sorry. Got carried away there for a moment. Where was I? Oh, yes.
Behold the saga of Fanboys. Rated PG-13. For 13 years, pre-Grogu.
There was life before Grogu?
There was life before Grogu.
Oh, baby Yoda.
Now, before we get into this, I need to do some math explanations here, okay? I said 13 years pre-Grogu. And right now, there's a bunch of people going, well, the movie was released in 2009. You said it was released in 2009. And The Mandalorian Season 1 came out in 2019. But filming started on Fanboys in 2006. Nahaha, math. It actually worked out that way. This film starred Dan Fogler, Jay Baruchel, Kristen Bell, Sam Huntington, and Christopher Marquette, with cameos by Darth Maul, Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, the Rancor Keeper, and Jay and Silent Bob. However, there was an almost starring in this one. In the movie, there is a scene where Ethan Suplee plays Harry Knowles. It was originally supposed to be George Garcia. He of Lost fame, and of course, we talked about him during The Ridiculous Six. He was supposed to play that role, but scheduling conflicts with Lost came in, and then it was supposed to be Kevin Smith. But editing for Clerks 2 pulled him away, so we got Ethan Suplee, and I'm kind of fine with that. The storyline was written by Ernest Cline, and if the name sounds familiar, that's because he is the writer of Ready Player One. So, total geek fandom here. It was directed by Kyle Newman, who directed Barely Lethal and the recently released movie One Up. However, this is where it gets interesting, because I mentioned that the film started shooting in 2006, and then in 2007, reshoots were called for, but they weren't actually directed by Kyle Newman. The reshoots were directed by Stephen Brill, and we've talked about Stephen Brill before on this show, because he directed Hubie Halloween, Little Nicky, The Do-Over, Joba Taylor, and the Thread segment of movie 43. Now, anyone who likes this film is going to kind of cringe at the mention of Stephen Brill, because apparently this film, the reshoots that were called for were basically to originally take out the cancer storyline that drove them to actually do the road trip. Apparently, the Weinstein Group wanted this to be a raunchier comedy with, they basically wanted a road trip or Euro trip kind of thing. So Stephen Brill went and did all these reshoots and all that, and test audiences that saw the redone one were like, "What the hell? This is not as good. This sucks." Apparently, Stephen Brill called the fans losers, threatened to hunt one fan down. So clearly, Stephen Brill did not take that well. And he got called out for it too by Kyle Newman as well. But this movie kept on getting pushed back and eventually got released in 2009. When it was released, it did not do that well in the theaters, but there's an asterisk on this one here. According to IMDb, this film has a budget of $3.9 million. Worldwide gross, $961,000, 203. It's not a lot. But there's a caveat here. When it was released on the February 6th, 2009 weekend, it debuted at number 37. But here's where the caveat comes in, because it was only released in 44 theaters. Very small, very limited release. So I did some math and sorted the box office for the week, or for that week, by per theater take. And in that sense, this film debuted at number 13 with a grand total of $3,800 and change per screen. Like, this is not a big film. And it's definitely one of those ones where people more than likely found it on home video because, according to thenumbers.com, it has already made $5 million at least in domestic video sales. So when I tell you that this film made only $1 million or less than $1 million in the theaters, like, are you shocked at that?
I am. I could have seen this to be like a more specialized theater, or like a TIFF, or like any of the film festivals, right? Where you draw in true moviegoers and movie buffs and the fandom. I would be curious, like, why? Like, why didn't they do a mass release?
It's hard to say, because, I mean, this film was screened for different Star Wars Celebration audiences and stuff like that. And, word gets out. It's not as everyone knows everything like they do now, but still in 2009, and then 2008 and 2007 before that, people know, like these stories come out. Nothing is hidden anymore in Hollywood. So it's like, yeah, like if you're a Star Wars fan and you loved what you saw in the initial screening, and then you hear that everyone and their dog wants to do reshoots, and the guy who's directing the reshoots thinks the fans are idiots, like, this is a movie for the fans, for Star Wars fans, even Star Trek fans, I would say. So when the guy who's directing the reshoots is like, oh, these fans are idiots, they don't know good movies. Like, seriously?
Wow. Who's the idiot there?
Right?
Right? Like, this entire premise of the movie is based on the fandom of Star Wars fans, arguably. Yes, there's a nod to Star Trek fans, and I love that. But, to say that the moviegoers are idiots and don't know what they're talking about, that's your audience. Who's the idiot again?
I constantly flash back to, that episode of Saturday Night Live where William Shatner's on and they're doing the whole Star Trek convention sketch on there, and he's like looking around at all the people in the Star Trek uniforms like, get a life. Have you even kissed a girl? Like that was funny because it was William Shatner, right? And it didn't take itself too seriously.
Well, again, it makes me think of Free Enterprise. Or even arguably Galaxy Quest, which I know is definitely not a contender for this show.
Oh, God, no.
Because it was very well received by the audience. But again, it's those pop culture genre-specific movies that are they're just so fun for the fandom.
Right.
And I hope one day, dear J.K. Rowling, please make this happen. Please manifest this into the world for Harry Potter fans, because you need to rethink and let Weird Al do at least a song for Harry Potter. Come on. The fans have spoken. I have spoken.
It is interesting too when you watch, I remember it's the, I think it's the Trekkies documentary that Denise Crosby put together. These franchises are built upon the fandom that made them, right? And you know what? The fandom can have a good chuckle. The fandom knows when something is making fun of, as opposed to making fun with. And a movie like this, it's making fun with. Now, admittedly, we are not behind the scenes people. We have no insider information. We are literally telling you that which we research. So before you sit there and go, you don't know anything, you're right, we don't. We just know what we have read. But put this into perspective here. You're a Star Wars fan, and you're reading all this about this movie that is dedicated to, these characters who are themselves Star Wars fans. And you're reading all this behind the scenes stuff, you're going to get mad. You're going to get upset because, again, like when this movie was originally screened for George Lucas, Lucas loved it. Like the original cut with the cancer storyline, Lucas loved it, approved everything Star Wars in it. The fact that they have the sound effects straight from Lucasfilm, like so much, this film is a love letter. It's not making fun of Star Wars. It's a love letter. It's making fun with, and that's okay. But Star Wars has never been for the critics, has it? Really? And before you say, well, no, Star Wars movies have good critic ratings. Yes, very, very true. But I think they do it begrudgingly, right? I think it's one of those hostage situations where it's if I downvote this, people are going to hunt me down.
I was just going to say it's job security because they don't want to change their name and, go under a witness protection
right.
plan because the fans will hunt them down. I am curious, though, about the director that was like
Stephen Brill
harassing the fan, or there was that.
Well, he had to direct Hubie Halloween,
attack.
so he got his comeuppance already. I went there,
Goodness.
didn't I? But that being said, this film did not do well as far as the critics go. Over on Metacritic, it has a meta score of 45. And over on Rotten Tomatoes, it has an audience score of only 57 and a tomatometer of only 32. Now, I can appreciate the low box office take because it was only released in 44 theaters. You're not going to make a ton of money that way. I get it. But the 32 tomatometer? Really?
I'm actually more surprised by the audience score.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, right? Like, as a Star Wars fan, and I'm just going to put this out there on Front Street right now. I love this movie because I'm a Star Wars fan, right? I get it. I do, right? And if you think, like, if you're going into this expecting, some goofy road trip movie, which is what the producers wanted to do with this, then you're not getting what you expect. Can
I just put it out there, though, that I am a huge fan of the goofy road trip movie. Love it. Highway to Havasu, road trip.
You're going to lead off with Highway to Havasu?
Yes, I am, because I am taking it back. One day, I will win, and we will be discussing that on this show. But I do. I love a goofy road trip movie. It's just something about, the constant very bad things happening along the way, and that makes the story, and that always makes the characters that much closer at the end because they survived the trip.
Well, keep in mind too, like this film was, filmed in 2006, released in 2009. So if you're looking at road trip movies leading up to that, you've got like Road Trip itself, which was released in 2000, Euro Trip in 2004, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, 2004, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, 2001, Are We There Yet, 2005. Like, I get it. I do. But the producers clearly wanted to make this something that it never was. This was a story about 4 Star Wars fans trying to make sure that one of them got to enjoy, by the way, spoilers, okay? Spoilers. Got to enjoy the new Star Wars movie, which at the time was The Phantom Menace, because the film is set in 1998 before he passes away from cancer. This is a heartfelt story, and made even more so by the fact that when Ernest Cline wrote the original story idea for this, his mother was dealing with cancer. Like, when you realize where this story comes from, I'm sorry, you don't mess with that. You don't. You don't sit there and say, oh, okay, cool, heartfelt story. Let's put more dick and fart jokes in it. No, this isn't Euro Trip. This isn't Road Trip. No one's going to White Castle here. They're going to Lucas Ranch. This is Dying Wish here.
I love that it was Linus who was selected to see the movie.
Oh, I mean,
like, and the fact that I've watched the movie several times to see if there's something I missed, and all I can say is it's because Lucasfilms and George Lucas himself had intel on each one of the guys.
Yep,
and that's why he was
hilarious.
Selected. Because the whole time I'm watching it, and I'm like, that scene where they're in his office and they have the props, maybe there was something there that maybe he was the one that was standing back. No, he was the one leading the charge of crazy. So, it had so much heart.
Yeah.
And just the fact that they had been planning this, from grade 5 or when they were 5. I can't remember exactly.
In some way, how to get into Lucas Ranch kind of thing. I will say that if they were to make this film today, as much as as good as a job as Kyle Newman did, this film would need to be directed by Sean Levy. the guy who directed Free Guy and the Internship and the Adam Project, and he's going to be directing Deadpool 3 because I don't know what it is about Sean Levy. He has this innate ability to add way more heart into a story that the original, paper plot probably deserved, and that's a credit to him. But let's get into the breakdown here, and we need to start with Christopher Marquette, Linus. This is the guy who, is living on borrowed time, right? And the fact that, the producers wanted to pull the cancer story out and turn this into a typical raunchy road trip movie, no. He's the heart and soul of the reason why this is happening. But how was Christopher Marquette to you?
He was so great. I really love, it was just something, I don't know, you wanted to see him see the movie. And it wasn't necessarily because of the cancer angle. It was the fact that he, out of all of the group, never lost sight of his dedication to the movie. Mm-hmm. And whereas, sure, the other characters, they were still very much Star Wars fans, but there's Star Wars fans, and then there's it's literally a part of you. Mm-hmm. And I really got that from his character, and I love that. Here's the thing. Of the four main characters, Eric, Linus, Hutch, and Windows, Eric is the one who kind of drifted away from the main group in this quest to, kind of grow up, I guess, right? Even though he's a talented comic book artist, he has so much potential, but it's one of those things where you get to a certain age and you're like, drawing comic books and talking Star Wars all day doesn't seem like the kind of thing, a post-high school person is supposed to do. Yet some people make a very good living off of it. So I haven't made any living off of it whatsoever, but I will still talk Star Wars all day, every day, as much as you try to tune me out. But there's something about Linus though, right? He is battling time. He is. But he's also really what, not necessarily cautionary tale, but he's basically the reminder to Eric that yes, you are on this planet for a short time. So love what you love, do what you do, do what you have to do to get by and live kind of thing. But don't ever give up on everything that you love just because, you're an adult now. You're out of high school, right? Your passions define you, right? They drive you. They make this life. Linus is there not just as the impetus for the road trip, but also as a reminder to Eric that you don't have to give up on everything that you love. No Snickers bar required there. Tissue. Who'd have thunk? Who'd have thunk that we're sitting here talking about a movie where someone presses their bare ass against a van window and you're like, I need a tissue. My husband's making me cry. But let's move on to Sam Huntington, who plays Eric, the guy who, kind of drifted away from the group. For the record, by the way, this is not his first road trip movie because he was also in 1999's Detroit Rock City. Yeah, road tripping to go see Kiss. This is interesting too because he is at that crossroads, right? Where, and I'm sure everyone has been in that moment. Right? You have that which you always thought you'd have in your life, whether it be a love of Star Wars or drawing comics or music or whatever the case may be. And then around the corner, there's adulthood. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to be this. And I think he did very well at doing that. But for you, how was Sam Huntington as Eric? I gotta say, I love when he lost the suit and he was back in uniform, back in his Star Wars tee. And you could just tell that was the pivotal turning moment for him. Although he was already on the road trip and he was actually the one that kind of brought it back to light and made it happen. by finding that old map that they had done so many years previous.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It was just such a nice turnaround.
Yeah.
Where, he was very much aware that his job was on the line and he didn't care. He wanted to see this still happen for his friend. And that was, get the tissue.
I find it funny, and I'm going to go back a ways here. And I'm probably going to date myself in doing it, but bear with me here, okay? Because like you said, like the whole thing with, like suiting back up, getting the Star Wars shirt on, and he's still drawing through the movie kind of thing. So let me go on my story time here, okay? So it was like grade 4, grade 5 kind of thing, and I would go over to sleepovers at my friend's house, and we had this thing where we'd get all hopped up on sugar at night, because that's what you do when you're in grade 4 and grade 5 on a sleepover kind of thing. But I remember, and I think the guy's name was Mike, he had this ghetto blaster, and the ghetto blaster had a microphone in it. So we would pop a blank cassette in, and we would come up with these stupid sketches and basically make this fake radio station. I think we used to call it like Waste Product 606, because that's what we thought a radio station should be called, right? But clearly we were doing some crazy garbage humor. But we would do that like all night. And then we'd listen back to the tape, and we'd listen to our laughter and all that kind of stuff. And now here I am in front of a microphone, in front of not just my wife, but my best friend as well, making a lot of stupid jokes. And yeah, I listen back to it when we're editing, and I love the laughter that we hear. Eric is reason for you to go back, find those stories that you wrote, those poems, those things that you drew, pull them back out. Don't forget what drove you when you were a kid. So moving on, and before I even get my thoughts in there, I'm going to throw this one right to you. Dan Fogler as Hutch. now
Excited squee.
Now we did mention, of course, that Carrie is a massive Potterhead. So realizing that the man with one ball in this film is a straight up muggle.
Oh. You know what? I think he was such a charming character in Fantastic Beasts. I mean, how could you not? The scene where he's given the wand and he's like, oh, seriously? Like, you know what? The fact that he was such a pivotal character in this road trip, and just he lived, and again, living his fandom. He lived and breathed, and like, he totally believed that his van was his ship, like, oh my God, it's just something so incredibly charming about his level of geekery that is just, it's so incredibly, he was perfect. He was absolutely perfect. And, so that's some crazy hair too.
Oh God, yes. Well, keep in mind too, it's kind of like the same hairstyle he had when he was in the movie Balls of Fury, which, yes, someday we're probably going to have to talk about Balls of Fury. Dan Fogler as a ping pong master taking on Christopher Walken.
Well, exactly. And I think that was kind of where, when he joined the Fantastic Beasts cast, it was like, whoa, he cleaned up, and he's actually, because he was so kind of typecast, I think, for that look that he had.
For those crazy, wacky, raunchy comedies. Yeah, I mean, I get that. But I mean, here, yes, Hutch is kind of like, the coolest of the uncool, right? Like, the loud, boisterous, party-going guy of the guys who never get invited to the party, right? Like, but he's in this situation, right, where he's living in, the carriage house. Sorry, the garage, right? But he's got a plan. He's got a plan, and he's a talented detailer. Like, if you take a look at the van, right? Like, it's very, very cool what's on there, right? So, he has this plan to open up this business and whatnot, which makes him kind of the opposite of Eric. Hutch has a plan, but he just needs to act on it. Eric acted without a plan, right? He's working at the car dealership, and his dad's going to give him like the run of the place and all that. And right, he's rudderless. He's letting life steer him. Hutch is ready to take life by the one ball and go forward. He just needs to be able to turn that, one day into day one. Like as we're talking about this film, and I'm very much realizing there is a load of motivation in this film, right? And I'm not talking about like, the characters have, reason to do something. I'm talking about looking at these characters and realizing each one of them represents different parts of people's lives and learning to live and love the way you should. Like I don't know about you, but I'm seeing so much heart in this film that, someone wanted to turn it into a raunchy comedy. They missed the point.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that wasn't lost because it is present.
Yeah. Like, you can't pull the cancer story out of this. Cancer motivate. Like, apparently the idea was to turn this into, let's get drunk and, head down to Lucas Ranch and see, Phantom Menace. No.
But it misses the point of a group of friends who were drawn together at a young age to formulate this crazy plan of breaking into Lucasfilms. Like, really, there is so much heart there in their bond of their shared fandom.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of the story. And I'm so glad it wasn't lost.
Like, there's the moment when, and again, warning you, spoilers, right? Where Linus gets to watch the film, and he's the only one who does. And it just sits there and focuses on his, awe and wonder of the next chapter. Like I remember when Phantom Menace came out. Right? Like, I remember being so freaking hyped for this film because for years, over a decade, the only Star Wars I had was the original trilogy. Maybe if I got my hands on like the Ewoks cartoons or the Droids cartoons. But really, it was the trilogy. It was 3 films. 3 films changed fandom. Period. 3 films. And then it comes back. And like you hear, the Darth Vader in the trailer. You're like, hairs standing on your arm, back of your neck, right? You see the poster of, young Anakin, and in the shadow is Vader, right? Like, lost my damn ish. And say what you will about Phantom Menace. We joke about Jar Jar a lot. But
I still feel really bad for Alien, played by Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
Played by Seth Rogen.
No one wants Jar Jar tattooed on their body.
Little did he know, but this man, he's going to save the franchise.
But I mean, like, say what you will, right? But when that movie came out, like, my fandom grew even more so, right? I was so psyched for more Star Wars.
So I have to ask you then, as a child growing up with the original trilogy, and with all of the new additions and the new backstory, forward story, like the Star Wars, like the absolute universe that they have created.
Yeah.
As a fan, are you liking where you are today, or do you want to go back to the original trilogy and leave it at that?
No. I've always wanted more. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy with more, right? Like, look, as an adult, right? Quote unquote adult. Legally, I'm an adult.
Bitch, please.
But I mean, really, right? And
he's adult sized.
Yeah. More adult sized since the pandemic. But but I mean, like, how many Star Wars books have I read? Like, so many of the expanded universe books, right? Like, so I could watch Star Wars day in, day out and never grow tired. And it doesn't matter what Star Wars is, right? Yeah, okay, we can poke fun at Jar Jar, right? Yeah, we can quibble about, Rise of Skywalker could have been a better film, right? Yes, we can quibble about the Book of Boba Fett being better when it became the Book of the Mandalorian. But we still have our fandom. We still have more Star Wars, right? There are franchises out there that will never be revisited. And that's a damn shame. Right? Like,
again, dear J.K. Rowlings, please don't make that Harry Potter. The Wizarding World needs more.
Right? But think about it, right? When Battlestar Galactica came back, fans of the original series went nuts. If you were to today make a Buck Rogers series, there'd be people who would lose their minds. Right? Even recently, David Tennant shows up on Doctor Who going, what? What? And people were like, the world is right again.
So, same question with Marvel.
See, I'm also very understanding that not everyone is going to not everything that comes out is going to be good. I get it. Right? I can appreciate the good and the bad, but also be very thankful that the fandom continues and that the content continues, right? If you were to stop the MCU today, there'd be a riot. And no matter how much people sit there and rip on, shows like She-Hulk or Miss Marvel or, complain that the Incredible Hulk is a bad movie. No. Like, for fans of the property to see that which they love continue on, right? It means the world, because our fandom, the things that made our childhood, continue to come back to us. And that's the thing with these four, with Eric and Linus and Hutch and Windows, right? I guarantee you, those four people exist today, and they are sitting around every week on Wednesday watching episodes of Andor or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka when it comes out, popcorn ready in their Darth Vader popcorn bowl, dressed up to the nines in their Star Wars regalia. Like,
I loved the scene where they were in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
These four guys were in Vegas, and the only thing that they wanted to do, what was on their bucket list at the moment, was to sit in the hotel room and to watch Star Wars.
Well, no, that wasn't Star Wars. They were just watching like whatever they could on the hotel TV. But that's how you Vegas, apparently. That's how you con. But I mean, look, I come at this film as not just a massive Star Wars fan, right? I am the co-host of Just Another Nerd Show for a reason, right? Like, I wear my nerdom on my sleeve. And literally in the ink on my arm. Fans get it.
I just want to disclaimer that he does not have a Jar Jar Binks tattoo.
No, and no. But let's move on here. We got to talk about Jay Baruchel here. Yes. as Windows. Look, you take one look at him, and all of a sudden you wanted to channel the Revenge of the Nerds going, nerd!
But that was by design.
Oh, absolutely.
His hair, his glasses.
Like,
it was an homage to
George Lucas.
The man himself.
Absolutely. And I think, Lucas got it. I think he totally got it. Right? I mean, we got to talk about Windows and Zoe as a package deal here, right? Because they're both kind of the cliches in a weird kind of way, right? Windows is very much like young George Lucas, right? Like, he's so dedicated to the everything Star Wars. He knows everything, like literally everything. And then Zoe is almost by definition the manic pixie dream girl, right? She's cute and quirky and knows everything about Star Wars and everything about every cool comic book, and happens to have a thing for Windows. Manic pixie dream girl. But it works because Jay Baruchel gives such an earnest portrayal to Windows. And Kristen Bell is just badass enough to pull off Zoe in a way that makes sense. But how are the two of them together for you?
Okay, full disclosure here. I lost my mind when I looked up the cast for this, and I realized that Zoe was Kristen Bell.
Right.
I had no clue that was Kristen Bell, and she is so perfect in the role of Zoe. You know what? I can understand her because growing up and in high school, my group of friends was all guys, and I was the one girl in the group of guys, just trying, not necessarily trying to be one of the guys, but to be able to communicate with them on their level, whatever it was, in our case, it was like heavy metal music, right? But to prove that you're still a girl and you're still feminine, right? You're not one of the guys, but you can hold your own.
You're just a girl in the world. You are Gwen Stefani at this point.
Yeah, but not as cool.
Maybe cooler.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
nice. No, but I absolutely, completely, I understood her. I in high school was her, not her, not as cool. I had no idea that, again, it was Kristen Bell. She was she looked so completely different.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for Kristen Bell from The Good Place, then yes, she does look completely different, but yet still the same, right? And keep in mind too, this came out 2 years after Veronica Mars finished, right? So she may be the biggest name on the cast at the time, right? At least of the five main characters. But I think she was perfect in this. She was so perfect for this. Let's talk Seth Rogen, because pulling double duty on this one here, because he was Roach, the guy with all the Star Wars tattoos, who's basically like the two girls' pimps, and he was Admiral C. Schultz, the head Trekkie that kept on going toe to toe with our fearsome foursome here. So I'm going to rather than ask you how Seth Rogen was, which Seth Rogen did you like better, Admiral C. Schultz, the Uber Trekkie, or as Roach?
Oh God, Roach. And I apologize. For some reason, I thought his character name there was Alien.
Nope.
I was mistaken.
No, he has aliens on his body, but see, I preferred him as Admiral C. Schultz.
Really?
Yeah, because there was just so much, knowing fun in that character. Again, Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, any fandom fans can have a good laugh at themselves. And maybe it's the Canadian in me that says this, right? But we can laugh at ourselves.
But the Star Wars song, come on. That was so funny.
But even the little things that statue looks nothing like Kirk. Well, the idiots at Viacom won't allow us to do that. So, I mean, I get it, right? It just makes the fact that so much proper Star Wars, intellectual property is in this, and nothing proper of Star Trek except for William Shatner himself is in this. But we got to talk about the cameos here, because there is a ton of cameos in here. So rather than go through one by one, which cameo stood out for you as being
oh my God, Carrie Fisher is the Doctor. Love her. And the I know, again, tissue.
Right.
You know what? I actually forgot that she was in this movie. So the minute that we did the rewatch, I was like, oh, and it was just kind of you have that moment of wow.
Yeah.
You know, she really is missed because she really was a gem.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, seeing Ray Park as the security guard doing backflips and all that, like that was hilarious too.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Even Jay Muse. I actually, you know, I watched it twice and kind of second guessed myself. I'm like, that has to be Muse. But because he had the short hair, it was like, no, maybe? Is it?
But seeing William Shatner in the shadows going, I'm William Shatner. I can score anything. Like, again, if William Shatner can have a good chuckle at everything, then yeah, so can the fans. Absolutely.
Let's be honest. He made a career of making fun of his stardom.
I mean, it took him a bit to get there, though. Like, I do appreciate that, you know, when the first, you know, run of Star Trek was done and all that. And you don't want to be typecast. You know, you want to be able to do other roles kind of thing. But then when you realize that so much, you know, the fans make this fun. And the same thing with Patrick Stewart, right? You know, many documentaries, he was like, you know, the first year he was, you know, we got to do this serious show and we can't goof around on set. You know, we got to, you know, and he eventually got it. He finally came around and realized that if I don't have fun, then this isn't going to be fun, right? We fans, and it doesn't matter what you're a fan of, Doctor Who, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Harry Potter, Marvel, DC, both, why not? Heavy metal music, K-pop, doesn't matter. Love what you love. Love it with all your heart. Zero apologies. This movie does that. And services the fans like it's a 2-for-1 special on, you know, happy ending day. Because there is so much in here. Like if you're a Lucasfilm fan, right? You've got the Raiders of the Lost Ark. You got Indiana Jones in there. You got the whole like, hey, look, it's the one from Willow. Remember Willow? Yeah, Disney Plus remembers Willow now. Willow's coming back. The fact that the guards are dressed straight out of THX 1138. Like there's so much fan service in this. Like, and again, I know I have converted you, you know, into at least a Padawan. But as you're watching this, how much are you geeking out about all the Star Wars references? Oh,
I mean, and that's what it's about. Fanboys, fangirls, fans of the genre.
Yeah.
Fans of the property.
I mean, hell, if Denise Crosby can put a documentary out called Trekkies and still have it be very heartfelt and, you know, not talk down to people, this Fanboys is this. It's not a road trip comedy. It's a love letter.
Yeah.
It's a love letter to all of us.
Let your freak fan fly.
Your freak flag fly.
Your
also,
fan freak fly? What?
Well, you know, if you're going to fan a freak fly, well, you know.
I love that band.
Now, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room here a little bit. As you're watching the credits, right? The Weinstein Group, produced by Kevin Spacey. I think you have to ignore the credits, right? Don't just sit there and say, oh, it was produced by this and by this. Like I get it. I get it. Horrible people help make a good film. Does not take away from the film.
But Weinstein almost ruined the best or the biggest part of the heart of this storyline.
Well, let's be honest, Weinstein ruined a lot of things, but you know. But I mean, it's just because, and this kind of goes more to the fandom as well, right? Every now and then, someone or something that you idolize might turn out to be something you don't want to be associated with, right? I'm sure there are people who were like, oh, Ted Nugent's a phenomenal guitarist and Cat Scratch Fever is a great song and all that. And then you listen to him go off. You can disagree with the artist and still appreciate the art. You could sit there and say, oh, Metallica cut their hair. I'm never listening to them again. You can disagree with the artist and still appreciate the art.
If anything, I would think it would be more Lars versus Napster, but
very much so.
That is different because that's the actual. I'm not going to say the band because I think Lars really spoke out of turn and went, completely against everything that Metallica ever stood for. Garage band coming up. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But with that said, that was provoked because that was an action of the band.
Yeah.
You can still listen to the music, still support the rest of the, the band, but
and that's the thing. You can sit there and say Cat Scratch Fever is still a good song, even if I think that the guy who made the song has gone off the deep end. Right? That's okay. You can still like the art, even if the artist has changed. Right? Some of the people behind the scenes of this film turned out to be not good people. Does not take away the fact that this film has a ton of heart in it. Is a really touching story. And anyone who's a fan of anything can see themselves in one of these characters for whatever they love. This film is a good film. It's fun, it's funny, it's heartfelt. Don't let one name in the credits spoil the experience for you. That's my diatribe. That's my soapbox for the day. Now, before we started recording, you said you had something like not necessarily a bone to pick with this film, but you had some thoughts on it. Oh,
no. If anything, I think what we would be remiss if we didn't mention the soundtrack. The use of music was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I can't remember the song at the end, like the title, but it was like the quintessential, end of the buddy movie where everything's going well and is right in the world.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest.
I'm not even going to sing it because you're welcome.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The soundtrack kind of, and this is funny because I'm a musician, so normally I key into the music. The music kind of skipped by me in this one.
The use of Weezer and Lump.
I mean, yes, it was definitely, the soundtrack was designed to portray that 1998 kind of feel. I get that, but it's not like, I'm not going to go out and buy this soundtrack. This movie was not about the music. There are certain movies where I need to go out and get that soundtrack, right? This was just a bunch of songs where it's hey, this tells you that the everything's happening in 1998. And that's kind of about it, right?
I don't know. I thought the use of it in the scenes was, I would liken it to like a Jay and Silent Bob, where they will put a really popular song and it just helps. It just gives that little bit to the scene.
I guess it depends too, right? On the song in question, right? I know when they were doing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and there's the scene where Shannon Elizabeth comes into the movie mart there, and Kevin Smith wanted to use Prince's "The Most Beautiful Girl in the World," and Prince said no. Right, so they ended up using was it "You Give Love a Bad Name" or something like that from Bon Jovi, or Bad Medicine, right? Worked better, I think, right? But this film, the soundtrack to me felt more like a timestamp as opposed to selling the emotion. It's just me. Trust me, there are going to be movies that come up where it's going to be yeah, this film is good because of the soundtrack, right? This is not that film. This film didn't need a soundtrack to push it. This film had it in spades without the music. Although I will say, as much as I appreciate how much George Lucas allowed them to use of Star Wars IP in this film, God, I wanted some John Williams score in this. I really, really it would have been phenomenal to have somewhere in there the Imperial March come in, right? Because that is the most badass movie theme song of all time, the Imperial March. I don't care what you say.
And you know what I would have liked to have seen is, and you see it so often where a movie will kind of reprise the slow walking of the group. You know, I'm thinking Reservoir Dogs, and just that I would have loved to have seen when they arrived to Lucasfilms, and just like that moment when they're walking up to the building or whatever, and it I don't know, it just that felt like that's something it was missing.
It wasn't missing much. It's a really, really good film, but it has come time. So, Carrie, who is your MVP?
Yeah, this is where I have the issue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I want to call a friend on this. I don't have an answer for you. I literally, and I can say that although the key players, you know, the four guys, Zoe, everyone was so perfect and played their part so well and very much in line or in respect to the characters from Star Wars, right?
Really?
Like you've got your Obi-Wan, you've got your Han Solo, you've got Princess Leia, right? However, I cannot pick because there were so many cameos. I mean, aside from William Shatner, aside from Carrie Fisher, Seth Rogen was amazing. He was so funny. You've got Jay and Silent Bob. You've got Kevin Smith, right? Just the fact that he's standing outside of the public restroom. Like, it was... I'm
surprised you haven't pulled out Danny Trejo as well, too.
I was just going there. I was just about to say, you know what, if I had to choose, and this is where I really have issue, I would go with the Chief. I would go with Danny Trejo. And, of course, he calls himself the Chief.
Chief talks about himself in third person.
Yeah. Because the bitches love that. Oh, my God. You know what? But I really struggled. I really struggled with that one.
I'm going to throw the curveball at you here.
Do it.
Rather than, since you can't pick one MVP.
Oh, wait, and I forgot to give the honorable mention. Oh, my God. I actually forget the actor's name, but he was the Inquisitor at the end.
Oh, Danny McBride.
Yes. Oh, my God. He was so cool. Because even though I'm so used to see him playing as the asshole, that scene, that just pivotal moment where he was like, only one of you. And he gives the shot to Linus to watch the movie.
I just love the line. I was like, I have been told that everything I have just said, I no longer think. So
Yes. And okay, so again, this is my issue. Because as much as I want to pick one MVP, and I always want to give mad respect to Danny Trejo, it's just so hard to choose on this one.
Wow. Okay, so rather than, since you can't pick an MVP, is there a weak spot in this for you?
Ooh, that is a good question. Can you come back to me and tell me your MVP first?
You think about it, and I'll give you my MVP. My MVP is not in the film.
Oh?
Yeah. Curveball, right?
Mr. Lucas himself?
It is.
Oh.
George Lucas.
Did not see that coming.
Is my MVP of Fanboys. Like, here's the guy who created this world, who created what people have been continuously, dedicatedly loving since 1977. Like, think about that for a second. This film doesn't exist if 1977 didn't happen. And now, right? It's 2009 this film came out finally. We're in 2022, right? And we still have more Star Wars. It's because of one guy. But because of this film is what it is. Because George Lucas saw the original cut. And he got it. And he appreciated it. I think more so, and again, we don't know George Lucas, right? We don't. We're not at Lucas Ranch. We weren't there. But he gets it.
Can I just add my plot hole or what it's missing is if he was such a supporter of the movie, would have been nice to see him involved.
I think
even
it's better.
Cameo.
I think it's better without him.
Or likewise, because there's so much Star Trek and they're really kind of like drawing that parallel between the fandom, I think out of all of the cameos, it would have been pretty cool aside from William Shatner. Right?
So,
it would have been cool to see I don't know, maybe like Patrick Stewart or
see, I disagree with you in the fact that
Scotty.
I disagree with you in the fact that you think that George Lucas should have been in this film. I think it's better without him there, because if he's in the film, then it feels like Lucasfilm propaganda, for lack of a better term. Right? The fact that he is the quote unquote mysterious voice on the other end of Danny McBride's phone call, that is just enough. It is the perfect level of George Lucas involvement in the film itself, but he doesn't need to be in there. His vision's in there. His vision is in there from opening scroll to the very end.
And I love the scroll too. I think that's
right.
One of my MVPs.
And that's the thing. Like, this film is made by Star Wars fans. I mean, and Ernest Cline, right? Anyone who's seen Ready Player One knows how much of a fanboy he is of like video games and all that. Because like Ready Player One is just a series of Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg. This film, to a Star Wars fan, every scene has something in there where you go, well, there's that, and there's that, and there's that, and I understand that one, right? Like, as a Star Wars fan, I love this film, right? As a fan of road trip movies, I enjoy this film. If you're looking for a raunchy road trip movie, and I've said it before, if you're looking for a road trip, this isn't it.
Can I just add, though, that this movie had just the right amount of raunch, whether it's like the running gag with the one testicle or the lucky I know I'm going to say the wrong character, but the
lucky R2 unit, yep, in his pocket,
right? Like, you know, and Zoe like flashing windows just to kind of get noticed,
yep. Like, or proving that he wouldn't notice. Or
you know, the the sad attempt at using the Jedi mind trick to get Zoe to lift her shirt in the first place. Like,
yep.
It was present. It was just that bit of raunchy enough, but it was also tastefully done in, I think, you know, to suit a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Like,
it was perfect.
I mean, and that's like I think back to Eurotrip, right? Eurotrip had a lot of like the same kind of comedy beats, you know, obviously they're not Star Wars fans and whatnot, but you had that same kind of group, and Michelle Trachtenberg in Eurotrip was very much like the Kristen Bell in this one, right? Like it's, if you're a fan of the, you know, road trip comedies and you're a Star Wars fan, or if you're one or the other, this film has plenty in it for you. So I have zero idea why critics didn't like it. I have zero idea why the audience score is as low as it is.
That confuses me.
It does, because as a Star Wars fan, I am sufficiently sophisticated. As a road trip comedy appreciator, I am sufficiently sophisticated. As a whole, this film is funny as hell, and the fact that it still holds up 13 years later, right? we good. This film is good. But what did you guys think? Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter if you're still on Twitter at NotThatBadCast. Also, we are on Facebook now at facebook.com/NotThatBadCast. You know, if you're trying to escape Twitter. Carrie, thank you for going down this road. I recognize as a Star Wars fan, like I'm the giddy one here kind of thing. But I love that you love the film as much as I did. And for you, if you want to watch this is on Prime Video. It's also on Plex if you have that free app. So go watch the film. It's a ton of fun. Now, you guys know the drill. If there's a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned, like this one, or is just bad enough that there's no way in hell that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on Twitter at NotThatBadCast or on Facebook, facebook.com/NotThatBadCast, and let us know. And we will watch it, we will dissect it, and we will find the good things to say because we are looking for those A grades in B movies. Until next time, may the force be with you, everyone. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.